Record. Great. So here we go. So just note that when you're asking questions, the answers will be recorded. So, okay, officially welcome to the Business and Entrepreneurship session. This is specifically to tell you about programs for study abroad for business and entrepreneurship students. Now, you have the benefit of being a LeBow, an entrepreneurship student, and the benefit to that when it comes to study abroad is that you just have so much flexibility and support from your department. So there are some majors that can't say the same, but we send more business majors abroad than most other majors. So there's really no reason why you shouldn't be able to fit in study abroad. As long as you plan ahead, you should be able to fit in one or even more study abroad opportunities. So let me launch into a couple reasons why we find that study abroad is important. First things first is that when college graduates are polled, their number one regret is not studying abroad. So this is the time. This is your chance to study abroad when you are a student, when your responsibilities are really just to be a student. After you graduate, it becomes much harder to fit in study abroad. And I would say that it makes sense really to plan early and try to study abroad earlier, because as we've all seen this year, you never know what can happen. So you want to have no regrets when you leave college, and this is the number one regret of college students. So don't join them in their regret of not studying abroad. Be one of the people who do. You came to college to expand your worldview, and study abroad will certainly give that to you. It gives you a greater understanding of other parts of the world, of other types of communication skills, of self-reflection, how you are who you are. I studied abroad myself, and I realized just how American I am. I thought that I was someone who was a person of the world, and I went abroad, and that really slapped me in the face that I have a lot to learn. And that's really just the best way to self-reflect, is to be taken out of the comfort zone that you know and put somewhere else where life is a little different. And it gives you a cultural sensitivity and appreciation. And I will also say that employers love seeing students who study abroad. Aside from being something that makes you stand out, a thing on your resume that employers love to talk about and just something that makes you interesting, it also makes you resourceful and independent and able to deal with ambiguity, to see things from a different perspective. Co-op employers and employers post-graduation love to see that you've studied abroad. And we have a lot of partners that are really highly ranked universities. So it also is just a great resume builder. So there are a lot of reasons to study abroad. But my hope is that since you're here, you already know that. You know that study abroad is something that you want to do because you're here. So I want to tell you some myths that I hear when it comes to study abroad, and some reasons that people give themselves to not go. Myth one is that study abroad is only for certain majors. So first things first, that's not the case. We send every single major abroad in many different capacities. But specifically for LeBow, that is definitely not the case. We send more LeBow majors abroad than almost any major. And LeBow majors have a ton of flexibility. Even if you are a double major, a triple major, a major with multiple minors, a major with one minor, either way, as long as you work with your academic advisor in our office, we can find something for you. So there shouldn't be a reason academically that you don't go. Myth number two, if I go abroad, I'll get behind and graduate late. Same sort of thing, not true. As long as you plan ahead, you shouldn't graduate late. And the earlier you go, the more helpful that will be. The earlier you plan, the more helpful that will be. If you are entering into your senior year next year, that doesn't mean it's too late. It just means we have a couple things to talk about. I need to know a foreign language in order to study abroad. Definitely not true. Most of our programs are English speaking. A large amount of them don't even have a language requirement at all. We have some that have a very low language requirement. And if you see any that have a high language requirement, which are few, but there are a couple, that's because it's a language intensive program where the courses are taught in that language. But there's not that many of those. Most of our programs are taught in English, and many of them don't require a language requirement at all. And then lastly, study abroad costs too much money, and I can't afford to spend any more money. So study abroad, in particular, the rates will change depending on where you go. Your Drexel tuition, as long as you go in a Drexel program, and I'll get into this in a little bit, but your Drexel tuition will remain the same as long as you go in a Drexel program. The difference is going to be the cost of where you go, and that will really range depending on where you go in the world and how expensive the cost of living is there. Also, a lot of what it costs to go abroad depends on how you choose to live your life. here on campus or off campus in Philadelphia, when you're a student at Drexel, you're not going to like Miami and Vegas and San Diego every weekend. You're mostly staying put. But when you're abroad, you may want to travel a bit more. And that will, of course, make things a bit more expensive. So many students save up from their co-op jobs before going abroad. But the truth is that you don't have to have, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars saved up to go abroad, as long as you pick somewhere that is within your means. Additionally, there are a lot of scholarship opportunities out there, and I'll get into those a little bit later. So before I launch into some LeBow specifics, I wanted to address the elephant in the room. And if you recognize this is Lucy the Elephant, located in Margate, New Jersey, at the Jersey Shore, because I want to address the elephant in the room. So study abroad and COVID-19, right? We all know what's going on in the world right now. And I'm just going to be very honest with you of what's happened and what we see happening moving forward. So we had to cancel our programs since March. And we just canceled our winter programs, and we canceled them based on the safety ratings in the other parts of the world, and based on how long it would take to get visas for those countries, based on whether they were allowing US citizens in the country. And this is pretty standard in the field of study abroad in general, is that most universities have canceled study abroad since March. However, spring 2021 and beyond is still scheduled as usual. Now, our spring quarter is actually a very small quarter where we don't send a lot of students abroad in spring. We send most of our students abroad in summer and fall, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with spring, but we're really hopeful for summer 21 and for fall 21. And we are moving forward with all of those plans as usual. And we are accepting applications. We absolutely have not canceled anything. However, we are certainly able to provide flexibility with things like withdrawals and refunds. All of the students who withdrew or whose programs were canceled from spring 20 and beyond, they were given back their deposits, and they were offered the ability to transfer or defer in some capacity. So we know that this is a time of uncertainty, and that students who are applying for summer 21, fall 21 and beyond are applying in a COVID world that's an unsure world. And we're working with all those students to provide flexibility so that you can plan for study abroad. Now, this is an exact example of why it's great to start early, because most of the students who are applying to go abroad in fall 20, in fall of their junior year, now get to go in fall 21, fall of their senior year. So they still have a year left. But those who are planning to go in fall of their senior year, they're graduating. So they are likely not able to go abroad on one of our programs. Now, of course, it doesn't mean they can't ever go abroad again. That just means they're going to graduate, not be able to go one of our programs. So it certainly helps to plan early. Now, if you're thinking, well, I'm already going to be a senior, so I already haven't done that, that's totally fine. We can certainly talk about next fall. And that's fairly common. We send a fair amount of seniors abroad. But if you are a younger student, freshman, sophomore, pre-junior, this is the time to start thinking about it, because who knows what's going to happen with the world. And of course, the safety of our students is number one priority. We are monitoring the situation closely. We don't want to send our students abroad into a situation that is not safe, but we also don't know what's going to happen with COVID. It is possible that we could be sending abroad in a COVID world at some point. So we're really hopeful for summer 21 and beyond, and we're moving forward with it, and we'll see what happens. So I'm happy to answer your questions with that a little later if you have any. All right. So let's launch into the program types. Now, some of you, if you've attended a Study Abroad 101 or attended one of our Welcome Week events, you may have heard some of these. This might be a little bit repetitive, but I'll get into the LeBow specifics a little bit later. So I just wanted to go over, generally speaking, our program types, what we offer here at Drexel. We offer, the first type of program is called a freestanding program. So this is when, generally speaking, you would go abroad with a group of Drexel students or students from other American universities. You're taking classes with American students. You are living typically with American students. Your grades are Drexel credits, Drexel grades. You'll choose from a short list of courses, and you will pay your standard Drexel tuition plus a program fee that will cover the cost of your housing. Most freestanding programs occur in the summer. There are freestanding programs that occur at other times of the year, but for the most part, they're in the summer. And so these programs have a lot of on-site support from our partners around the world. And it's really a cohort of Drexel students and other American students that you would be with for the majority of the time. So that's type one. The next type of study abroad program that we offer is an exchange program. This is completely different in structure. This means that you become a student at another university abroad. You are taking classes with the local students and other international students. There'll probably be a small group of Drexel students that are also going on this program. It is possible that you could be the only Drexel student, but that's pretty unlikely. So you'll be taking classes with local students, other international students. Maybe there'll be a Drexel student in your class. Maybe there won't. You can choose to befriend the Drexel students who go on this program with you. You can choose to completely ignore them. You can choose something in the middle. It's totally your call, but it's not a cohorted program where you have to be with them the whole time. You have a little bit more flexibility, and it's a far more independent process. There's, you will earn pass or fail grades, so you need the equivalent of a Drexel C or above. I want to be clear, that's a C or above, not a D or above. So it's credit or no credit. Now, most students appreciate this because you're studying abroad at another university. We don't expect you to pick up their style of teaching in one term. You will have an entire university course catalog to choose from. So if you need an upper level finance class, you can choose from their list of finance classes. So you'll have a lot more options academically on these programs. However, you won't know your final schedule until it gets closer to the program starting because you're choosing from a whole university course catalog. The same way that right now you're finalizing your winter quarter schedule at Drexel. You're not finalizing your fall 2021 schedule at Drexel. So it would be a while until you'd have your final schedule of classes for one of these programs. It will not impact your GPA. Your grades will freeze for the time, or your GPA will freeze for the time that you're over there. And most people typically appreciate that. Again, because it's a different style of teaching. There is no program fee for an exchange program. You will pay your Drexel tuition, and then you'll sort of pay for everything as you need. You'll pay for your housing, you'll pay for your flight, you'll pay for your food. The only thing you'll pay to Drexel is your tuition. So the exchange programs can be more affordable because you have a little bit more flexibility in how you spend your money. But if you choose an exchange program that's in an expensive part of the world, then they can be more expensive. It depends on where you go. So that's an exchange program in a nutshell. Then there's ICAs. ICAs stand for Intensive Courses Abroad, and perhaps you've heard of these. These are short-term programs that occur during the break weeks. Oh, it looks like something got cut off on my slide. That was supposed to say short-term programs during break weeks. So we offer these 4 times a year: fall, winter, spring, and summer break. So that would be September, December, March, and June. They are typically about a week to 10 days long, and they're 1 to 3 credits. I'd say more generally 3 credits, taught by a Drexel professor. So you're taken abroad with a Drexel professor and the rest of the class. And it's a cool way to fit in, 3 credits in the break period. If you're looking at perhaps, in spring 2021, you're supposed to take 20 credits and that seems like a lot for the term. Well, you could get 3 credits out of the way by going abroad in March on the ICA, and those credits will apply to the upcoming spring term. So there's no additional tuition for these programs because the credits are applied to the upcoming term. So if you go on a March program, it's spring credit. If you go on a summer program in June, it's summer credit, and so forth. So there is a program fee, of course, to cover the cost of the program, to cover your hotel or your housing, wherever else that may be, and trips and all the things that are incorporated in the class. So it's cool. It's an intensive class, and the purpose of the class is to be taught in a part of the world that's relevant to that class. So we offer these, again, 4 times a year. We are always updating them on our website. The locations often change. We have 4 that are currently open for this spring, and I'll get into that in a minute. And then we'll be adding ones for summer later. So the spring ones are still open. We have not canceled spring 21 at this moment, and we are hopeful. Fingers crossed. So moving on, when should you go abroad? There are so many options, so many quarters. When should you go abroad? Typically, the best years to go are sophomore, pre-junior, or junior year. I'll say for LeBow, the most common times to go are pre-junior or junior year. Now, when you go may depend on your co-op cycle. Fall programs have the most amount of exchange programs, and summer programs have the most amount of freestanding programs. Fall and summer have the most program options by far and beyond. We have some programs that occur in the winter and spring. They're not all perfect matches with our calendar. Some of them are a little longer. And there's just far more options in fall and summer, but you could go abroad in winter or spring if that worked better for you. Now, if you want to go on a fall program, but you have co-op during that time, That is not the end all be all, meaning that you can't go on the program. Oftentimes, co-op will change your cycle to go on a study abroad program that is only offered in that term. So if you want to go abroad in a fall program and it's only offered in the fall and you couldn't go on at another time, you would apply, hopefully get in, pay your deposit, and then co-op would work with you to change your co-op cycle. Now, that's not a guarantee. That is completely up to co-op, but that is historically what has happened for a lot of students when they select a program. I think there was someone unmuted. If you could just mute yourself, that would be great. We'll answer questions at the end. Thank you. So again, fall and summer terms have the best program options. Speak with your academic advisor about when study abroad works best for you. It could be fall of your pre-junior year, fall of your junior year. It could be because you have some prereqs, et cetera. We send LeBow students abroad in every single quarter. So you may just have too many options on your hand, which is a good problem to have. And again, I'll say fall and summer are the best typically for most program options. Okay, moving forward to cost. So the way study abroad works at Drexel is that you will pay all of your normal Drexel tuition. So if you are receiving any Drexel scholarships, grants, loans, aid, anything like that, that will all still apply. If you are a Liberty Scholar, that will still apply. If you have the Legacy Scholarship, the A.J. Drexel Scholarship, anything that's through Drexel, that will still apply. The difference will be the cost of going to that country. And that could be in terms of a program fee or in terms of just paying for housing to another university. So it really ranges. I mean, we have schools that are like $700 for housing for the entire term. And then there are places in the world that have $6,000 for housing for the entire term. I mean, it totally ranges. So I really recommend doing your research on the cost of living where you'd plan to go and see if that fits within your means. We do have a work study position available. We offer a blogger position. So you can blog for us about your study abroad experience and we will pay you in work study funds. You have to receive work study funds to qualify for it. But it's a pretty great way to continue your work study position and still get paid your work study funds while you're abroad. Additionally, there are several scholarships available. We run a couple through our office. So we have a project scholarship, a diversity scholarship for underrepresentation and study abroad, and a financial needs scholarship. There's not one winner. We have a lot of winners. We offer them to about 1/3 of the students who apply. And they're, roughly $1,000, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, depending on the location. So those are the scholarships through our office. And then there are plenty of scholarships out there for study abroad students, aside from scholarships at Drexel. There's a scholarship specifically for Pell Grant recipients. If you receive Pell Grant, you can apply to a scholarship called the Gilman, Gilman, the Gilman Scholarship. And that is up to $5,000 for a non-language program and up to $8,000 for a language intensive program. So there's a lot of funding there. And that's not an unachievable scholarship. We have a lot of Drexel students who've won. We've had Gilman winners, I think, every year for at least the last probably 10 years. So you can work with the fellowships office on a great essay for your Gilman application. There's also the Freeman Asia Scholarship for programs in Asia. And then aside from that, there are a couple Drexel specific ones that are pretty large scholarships that I'll launch into in a minute. So there's certainly opportunities for funding out there for sure. So just some examples of some intensive courses abroad. The ones that are upcoming for this spring break. If you are sitting there like, I need to get out of here. I've been in my parents' house for the last 8 months. I need to get out of here. Or I'm in Philadelphia, but I just want to leave the country. We are still accepting applications for spring break 2021. We have high hopes that it'll run. I mean, of course I can make no guarantees, but we have high hopes that they'll be happening. The Netherlands program is the business program that will be offered during spring break. This is again in March, but all of them are certainly open to students. So check them out on our website. The application's not all that hard or long. So if you're interested in going abroad ASAP, check out the upcoming spring break programs. And then we'll be adding the summer ones on our website shortly. And then I just wanted to give you an idea of past ICAs and where we've offered them. So you can see that on the side here of the types of courses that we have offered and their locations. All over the world, all different locations. all different types of credit. They're really cool. You can do more than one, obviously not at the same time, but you can do more than one. You could go, you know, fall of your sophomore year, then spring of your pre-junior year. I mean, you can mix and match. So they're really popular options for our students. Okay, where can you go on our full term programs? Here is the list of places that we have full term programs. All these are open to LeBow students. Some of them are specifically only for LeBow students, and I'll get into that in a minute. But this is the list of places that you can go, and you can find a breakdown of what programs we offer within those places on our website under the search by programs or search by country function. Specifically for business programs. So I wanted to give you a breakdown of what is offered for business students only. These are closed to everyone else. No one else can do them. They're only for business students. You'll see that almost none of them have a high language requirement. The only one is University of Navarra in Spain, and that has Spanish 101 or Spanish 310, depending if you take your classes in English or in Spanish. So take a look at this. Feel free to take a picture on your phone, whatever. They're all pretty popular options, and you'll see that they're in a mix of terms, with the vast majority of them in the fall. The Berlin-London program is in the summer. That's a business-only program. The rest of them are in the fall. Oh, I'm sorry, the Singapore program is also in the summer. The rest of them are in the fall because they are a full semester at another university. The summer programs tend to be shorter. They do give you this wonderful thing called vacation, where you would be abroad for, you know, a month, 8 weeks on one of our summer programs, and then you'd have the rest of the summer to do whatever you want. You're already in, you know, Europe or Asia. You could travel around after the program's over. So that's a benefit of a summer program, is that they're shorter and they give you a bit more of a summer vacation, which you don't really get often as a Drexel student. So, all right, so those are the business only programs, and I'm happy to take questions about individual programs after I'm done. Okay, these are programs, these are open to everyone, but they are great for business and they have no language requirements. And you can see that they're in a mix of places. Again, business students can go almost anywhere, but I wanted to give you a highlight of ones that we know have a lot of business classes and don't have a language requirement. Different than these, because these are business only programs, these are not business only programs. They're open to everyone, but they're just great for business. And then here are more programs that are open to everyone, great for business, and they have a brief language requirement. I'll highlight the Germany program, the UAS 7 Study Plus Co-op. That's a cool program. You get to study abroad for a term, and then you do a winter-spring research co-op. So if you are interested in Germany, in German, in having a co-op in another part of the world, this is a unique program. There aren't a lot of Study Plus co-op programs. If you came here because you have questions about international co-op, that is a different office. Steinbreit handles international co-op. Now, we work very closely with them. There are often students who do both, but there aren't many programs that kind of package them for you. That's really only a handful. UAS 7 is the only one that I think is open to business majors. That is Study Plus Co-op, all as one package. Anything else you are certainly welcome to do, but you would be kind of making that match on your own. You'd be studying abroad somewhere in the fall, somewhere in the winter, and then doing a spring summer co-op internationally, which a lot of people have done. It's just you're working with two different offices. Certainly an opportunity for you that you can take advantage of. Okay, so these are the programs that are great for business and have a brief language requirement. If you do not see what you want, if after all that I have talked about here today, you are like, I still don't see, you know, the location that I wanted to go to. I really wanted to go to Poland, and you don't have a program in Poland. That's completely fine. We know that we don't have programs in every single part of the world, but if that's the case for you, you can do what we call an independent study abroad for locations that are not offered through Drexel. So then you could study abroad in any corner of the world really that you want. The difference would be that this is not a Drexel program. This will be an independent program. So you will not pay Drexel tuition, meaning that if you are receiving any Drexel aid, that will not apply. Your federal aid may apply depending on the program, but your financial aid through Drexel will not apply. I'd say the most popular program that I see people do for independent study abroad is Semester at Sea. That's not a Drexel sponsored program, so you'd pay Semester at Sea directly, but they are a US-based program, so you could probably keep your federal aid. You wouldn't get to keep your Drexel aid. Additionally, you would be receiving transfer credit, not Drexel credit. So it'll look the same on your transcript as if you transferred it in. like you did on an AP exam perhaps, or transferred it in from Temple or community college. And you may have heard that LeBow doesn't accept transfer credit. And generally speaking, that is the case, but they do make exceptions for independent study abroad. So you'd go through a process to make sure that LeBow would accept your credit before you'd go on a program. That is not one of ours. So that's independent study abroad. And I'm the advisor for independent study abroad. So if you want to do a non-Drexel program, you'd work with me. Okay, I want to highlight a couple programs that are specifically for business students. One is really exciting coming up is a Sport Management in Rome program. This was supposed to be offered in fall 2020, and we had to defer it because of COVID, and it will now be offered in fall 2021. It is a specific cohorted program to American University of Rome. That's what AUR stands for, American University of Rome. It is led by a Drexel faculty member, Professor Larry Cohen. If you've taken a class with him, you know he is really great. He is the faculty member you want leading one of these programs because he's just someone you're really going to like. So you would take 2 sport management classes that are taught by Professor Cohen. You take 1 Italian class, and then you take 1 to 2 AUR classes, which could be business classes if you want them to be. AUR has a lot of business classes. They can also be gen eds, electives, etc. They have a lot of cool, Italian-based classes, arts-based classes, architecture classes, art and society classes. A nice little variety for you. And the program includes sports business related activities and tours around Rome. So Professor Cohen is planning with his connections a bunch of opportunities for students who are interested in sport to get to learn about sport in another country. So it'll be a Drexel credit, Drexel grades program. So it kind of functions like a freestanding program. No language requirement, open to all majors, but the deal is that you have to take 2 sport management classes. So while it is open to everyone, you have to be willing or at least interested in taking the 2 sport management classes. And I think it's going to be a really popular option for fall 2021. Professor Cohen is leading info sessions coming up on November 4th, 12th, and 17th. This is a link that obviously you can't link on because this is a presentation, but I can send that in an email, and I believe that will be sent out to at least the sports business majors. If you're interested in the sport business program, just put it in the chat and we'll take down your name and I will send you the links to the Zoom sessions. So that's one option specifically for this fall. It is a September to December program. And the applications for that will be due in mid-February along with the rest of our fall programs. Another super cool opportunity for LeBow students. This is brand new. The Marilyn D. Rose Scholarship at Trinity College Dublin in Dublin, Ireland. Now this is a brand new partnership with Trinity College Dublin. Trinity College Dublin is the #1 university in Ireland. Perhaps you've heard of it. You can Google the rankings. It's really highly ranked. We signed this agreement in March, and by March, I mean like days before COVID hit. So this is a brand new program. We'll be sending our first group of students in fall 2021. All things, hopefully, assuming that the world returns to us sending students abroad again. So we have a partnership with all of Trinity College Dublin, but the Marilyn D. Rose, the MDR scholarship, is specifically for a LeBow student, and that is guaranteed to 1 LeBow student. You have to apply specifically for the scholarship through our office, and the requirements are really just that you are a involved LeBow student with a GPA above a 3.25. The scholarship, they haven't deemed exactly how much it will be, but the scholarship is meant to cover housing, flight, cost of living. So it should be sufficient. The requirements are that you spend fall and winter at Trinity College Dublin in Ireland. Now, their winter extends a little farther than ours. It extends to the end of April as opposed to Drexel's, which extends to the end of March. So you would start your co-op. If you're 5-year 3 co-op, you would start your co-op late, but you'd, be basically fully funded to be there aside from tuition. So that is guaranteed to 1 Drexel LeBow student. I advise for that program. So if you were interested in it, you would make an appointment with me and I'll open you an application for that program. I have no idea how competitive it's going to be because it's our first year running it. I think it's going to be really popular. But your only competition are other Drexel students. And only Drexel students in LeBow. So even if it's competitive, it's still a small pool of people who qualify in the first place. So I really encourage you to consider it. I think it's going to be an incredible opportunity. Another sort of similar opportunity is at Aberdeen, University of Aberdeen in Scotland. There is the St. Andrew's Society of Philadelphia McNeil Scholarship, up to $25,000. This is the biggest scholarship I've ever heard of for study abroad. And the deal is sort of similar, that you go to Aberdeen at the University of Aberdeen from September to May. It's a little longer, but it will count as fall and winter, as will Trinity College Dublin. It will count as fall and winter. So be there for 2 academic terms. University of Aberdeen, if you haven't heard of it, is considered one of the 4 ancients. It's one of the best universities in Scotland. The 4 ancients is their equivalent of the Ivies in Scotland. So it's a really great university, and we've had this scholarship for about 4 years. So guaranteed to one student. The qualifications are a little different. It's not only open to LeBow majors, it's open to everyone. There's certainly business classes offered at this university, but it is offered to everyone. You have to have a 3.25 GPA, and you have to be a US citizen for this one, different from the Trinity College Dublin one. You have to be a US citizen for this one. It's not a scholarship that Drexel has designed. It is a scholarship that's been given to us by the St. Andrew's Society of Philadelphia. So it's really generous. If you Google this scholarship, you're welcome to, but if you Google it, you will find that they have also a Philadelphia-based scholarship that is open to everyone in the Philadelphia area who goes to a university here, basically. That exists as well, but we have a scholarship specifically to one Drexel student in addition to what they offer the rest of the Philadelphia universities. So this is special to Drexel. Unfortunately, they had to postpone it for academic year 21-22. So it will run again in academic year 22-23. So if you are not a junior planning to go abroad next year, or if you are younger than a junior, then this would be an opportunity you could apply for, not this upcoming year, but the next year. So put it in the back of your mind and certainly consider it, because it is a fabulous opportunity, and it's more money than I've ever seen in any other scholarship for study abroad. All right, where do you begin? I'm just giving you a bunch of information. Where do you start? You start on our website, drexel.edu/study abroad. On there, you will find ways to search by country, search by academic focus. So you can search specifically through the business programs, and you can also search by term. So if you want a summer program, a winter program, fall program, whatever, you can search by terms. If you want to go in a program that has a language requirement and you took that language in high school, you can place out of it. So you can take the language placement test, and then you don't have to take the prereq course if you place out of it. Talk to your academic advisor about studying abroad. The earlier you can plan, the better. You can study abroad, by the way, as many times as you could academically and financially make it work. We will not stand in your way. We will certainly help you make study abroad happen more than once. I've had students study abroad up to 6 times. So make it happen in whatever capacity you are able to do so, but you need the help of your academic advisor to fit all that in. So schedule an appointment with your academic advisor if you're unsure of when to go. You will have to meet with your advisor regardless when you are filling out your application. So whether you speak with your advisor before or after you open a study abroad application, either way, you have to involve them in the process. Once you have decided where you want to go, or you've at least narrowed it down to a couple countries, then you can make an appointment with a study abroad advisor. And on my next slide, I'll give you a breakdown of who advises for what. So you can make an appointment with a study abroad advisor, and that advisor will open you an application. If you are interested in a program that is offered, that one advisor advises for, and a different program that has a different advisor, that's fine. Just meet with the one whose schedule works the best for you, and then they can typically advise you on more than one program. If you have to make a follow-up appointment with someone else, that's fine. That's not a big deal. But please do not make 5 different appointments for different advisors. There's no need to do that. We can all assist you, even if it's not our program. Apply by the deadline. So I have a couple deadlines listed on a slide in a minute. The application itself is not really hard. It is a little time consuming. You typically cannot do it overnight. And that's because it relies on other people. You need to fill out an academic planning form. It's a fillable PDF that your academic advisor needs to sign. Your co-op advisor needs to sign. If you have a minor, that advisor needs to sign. If you're an international student, ISSS has to sign. So that's almost impossible to do in one day. So give yourself more time to apply, to fill out this form than one day. I have a lot of people who open applications at the last minute. It's really hard to do it at the last minute, and that puts a lot of pressure on your advisor, who typically get hounded right before the deadline. The application also requires 2 recommendations, another thing that shouldn't wait to the last minute. Now, the good news is that it's not a recommendation letter. It's not a long recommendation letter like maybe you needed when you applied for college. It's an online recommendation form. So your recommender just has to, well, you'll ask them and they hopefully say yes. And then you will type in their name and email address into our system. They will receive an email and they will click a link that will lead them to a short form to fill out about you. It's like 4 or 5 questions. It should be really easy for them and it shouldn't take them more than 15 minutes. So it's really easy for them, but you still need to give them time. Your recommendations can come from definitely one professor, has to be one professor. The second recommendation can come from a co-op employer or a second professor if you haven't had co-op yet. So those are the options. It cannot come from an academic advisor. It cannot come from a University 101 professor. It has to come from a professor or a co-op employer. There's an essay. There's a couple supplemental questions. The essay, by the way, is like 500, 750 words, so it's not crazy long. And then there's a $50 application fee, or only $25 for ICAs. And ICAs have a little less recommendation or requirements for your application than the full-term programs. So here's the breakdown in advisors. Again, please only schedule an appointment with one advisor. The link that you see at the bottom, that's the advising link. So you can write down that link, take a picture of the slide, whatever. You'll go to that link and you'll pick the correct advisor to make an appointment with. Again, please only schedule an appointment with one advisor. If after that meeting, you realize that that's not the program that you want, or you need more information from the second advisor, then you can make a follow-up appointment with that advisor, but please do not schedule an appointment with multiple advisors. We can all work with you. Once you've selected your program and you open your application, then that will be your advisor moving forward. Now, I often get questions of, can I apply for more than one program? The answer is no. You can only apply to one program per quarter. So if you want to go in a fall 2021 program, you have to pick your favorite. But we let you put in your application your second choice program. And if you don't get into your first choice program, we'll automatically shift your application to your second choice program, or your third choice, and so forth. We have a pretty high acceptance rate. Typically, as long as you meet the GPA requirement, you have a good shot of getting into a program. It may not be your number one program, but you have a good shot of getting into at least your top 3. And we will let you know if you are applying to a really competitive program or if you are applying to a program that has a pretty easy acceptance rate, because the school or the program has a lot of spaces, not because you're not a great student. Just some schools will only give us 2 spaces and some schools will give us 14 spaces. So that makes the competitiveness level a bit different. Again, my name is Lauren. I'm the last one listed. So I advise for Ireland, Scotland, Australia, the Middle East, and independent study abroad. So take note of who advises for where you're interested in. Click that link and then you can make an appointment with them. Our deadlines. If you are interested in going abroad this coming fall 21, your deadline is February 15th for almost all programs. So you have plenty of time, but we have to manually open an application for you for programs that are not ICAs. So you are required to make an advising appointment for all non-ICA programs. And in that appointment, we'll open you an application. You cannot open your own application unless it's an ICA. Winter programs, you have plenty of time, August 1st, spring programs, September 1st. Summer programs, we have a priority deadline of October 15th, so that just passed. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Programs don't usually fill by then. That tends to benefit some Westfall programs, so don't worry too much about that. And then we have a final deadline, really the one to keep your mind on. The final deadline for summer programs is February 1st. So take a look at what you're interested in, take a note of the deadline, make an appointment with the correct advisor, and then you can open up your application. Okay, so these are the deadlines for most programs. There are a couple that have later deadlines, maybe even 1 or 2 that have earlier deadlines. It's really important that you pay attention to that in the brochure, but generally speaking, these are our deadlines. All right, this is our contact information. So our website, our email with any general questions. Our location is on the corner of 33rd and Arch, but we are not in our building right now. We are all working from home. We are not sure when we'll come back to the office, but we look forward to welcoming you in person once we're able to do so. We are heavy users of Instagram. Tati here, who's our ambassador in this session with me, runs our Instagram account, and we often feature student photos. We highlight programs. Please go follow us on Instagram. When the time comes that we are sending students abroad again, we have them do Snapchat takeovers and show us what a day in the life is like. in their program, and we save those and we'll highlight them on our Instagram. You can search our student photos through Drexel Study Abroad or Dragons Abroad, the 2 hashtags. So follow us on social media and see kind of what we're up to. So that is my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and take your questions. So feel free to either unmute yourself or to put the question in the chat, should you have any questions.
I just had a quick one.
Yeah.
The summer program, the deadline of February 1st, is that for 2021 or the following year?
2021. Summer
Okay,
2021,
cool.
the deadline is February 1st, 2021.
Awesome.
I had a question about, wait, I wrote it down. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay, no worries.
For the ICAs, it's a 3-credit program. And you said that falls into the next upcoming term. So if you went for winter break, it would be for
Winter term.
winter going into spring, it would be for your spring term?
No, winter break is in December. So you would go on the program in December and then it would apply towards winter quarter in January. So you would start winter quarter with about 3 credits out of the way already.
So that includes, I know that we max out at 20 credits. So you would have 17 credits to work with after that, right?
Exactly, yes. After that, you'd go over the credit maximum.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. And not all ICAs are 3 credits. I'd say in general, most of them are. Some are lower, and I think every so often there's a 4-credit one in there. But generally speaking, they're 3 credits.
Can you explain the freestanding programs? Like, are there like group activities, or like is it kind of just like do it yourself? Like you're kind of with the group, but you just kind of go off and do your own thing.
I'd say they're both, honestly. Oftentimes the freestanding programs do organize at least group trips. So for example, our summer program in Rome often has an excursion to Florence. Our summer program in Dublin, London, in Ireland, there's often 2 excursions, one to Cork and one to Belfast. So they do often plan things for you. And even if it's not planned for you as part of the program fee, oftentimes there are optional things to do. I know the sport management track that's going to happen this fall 21, the professor is planning an optional trip to somewhere else in Italy that's sports based. So oftentimes there are things that are organized for you by the program to kind of give you more opportunities to see elsewhere, to have some group trips. And there was a second part to that question. There were 2 parts to that question, right?
No, that was my main
That was
question.
it? Okay, yeah. Oftentimes there are extra things that they organize for you, yes. But the other part I wanted to say, you do still have flexibility. You're not like you're not like a kid at camp where you can't go anywhere. You don't have a curfew or anything. You have flexibility to go do your own thing, and you're not booked every single weekend by the program. You can do your own travel, but they do often offer extra things as part of the program fee.
Are there conflicts with athletes trying to study abroad?
Sometimes. And that's more on the side of athletics. Like we allow athletes to go abroad, no problem. But sometimes athletes have scheduling issues. So I have seen the majority of athletes who come into my office plan with their academic advisor which term they plan to go abroad. And that tends to be later after their 4 years have completed on the team and they're in their 5th year, or they figure out, which term is the best to take off from the team. So I've sent some athletes in the summer. I had an athlete who was supposed to go abroad fall of her senior year before COVID hit. So I think athletes they sometimes just hear you can't go, that's it. But you should talk with your academic advisor of athletics because that's not the end all be all. I think it depends on the sport and your schedule and your major.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was wondering, in the list of countries that were available to go to, one that I was interested, I had seen Belgium, but then in the list of advisors, Belgium wasn't listed as one of the choices. So I was wondering, how.
Sorry, that was an oversight.
Okay,
I switched things around. That was an oversight. The advisor for that is Ashley.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. Good call.
Similar for Greece as well. There was no academic advisor listed under Greece.
We do not have a full-term program in Greece. We have an ICA in Greece. And so the ICA application doesn't require a meeting with an advisor, but you're welcome to if you'd like. I advise on the ICAs. Most of our advisors can answer questions about the ICAs, but we don't have a full-term program in Greece. So that's why you didn't see that listed. That doesn't mean you couldn't go to Greece. That means it would be an independent program to Greece if you want to do a full-term program.
Okay, and do you have programs for Romania? That's my last question. Like, any programs for Romania?
I do not have a program in Romania, so that would be an independent study abroad program.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
For the freestanding, it said like usually with the program free housing's included. So would you live kind of like in a dorm situation with like other Drexel students, or does it like depend?
Yes, typically it'd be a dorm or apartment style. Oftentimes it'd be with at least one other Drexel student. Sometimes there might be students from other American universities who are housing with you. It depends on the program, like what the breakdown would be. But generally speaking, yeah, you'd be in a dorm or apartment style housing with other Drexel students. Now, there are a couple programs that have homestays that are freestanding programs, particularly the language intensive ones, because homestays make it easier to learn the language. But generally speaking, it'd be dorms or apartment style.
And then for like the exchange, is it kind of like depending on the university, some of them offer housing and then some you would just have to find on your own?
Yes, some guarantee housing, some offer but don't guarantee, and some do not have it at all. I would say the majority fall into those first two categories, guarantee or offer but don't require. So it's important that you read that on the brochure if that's important to you. If you want to do your own thing and find your own housing, I found that sometimes students later on in college, like if they're going abroad in their junior or senior year, they're like, I've already done the dorm thing and I want to find my own housing. So you pick a school that doesn't require you to live in their housing. But some schools just make your life a lot easier by organizing it for you. You don't have to worry about a year-long lease and shortening anything. And they just will put you up in one of their dorms, flats, apartments, anything under the sun.
Thank you.
Yeah. And just as an FYI, Tati here, I'm pointing to this way because you're on the screen next to me here, did study abroad at Paris, London. So if you have any questions about that program or about studying abroad in general from the student perspective, Tati would be happy to answer those for you.
For the language intensive programs, can you just kind of describe exactly what that means? Is that if you're for example, Spanish, would you have to be a Spanish major or you would go there for the purpose of learning that language?
So Drexel doesn't offer any language majors, only language minors and certificates. So for the language intensive programs, I didn't even really highlight a lot of those today because we don't have a ton of LeBow students who want to take an entire term of language as opposed to some business classes smattered in there. They tend to be global studies majors, but they do exist. You can take a look on our website under the language intensive programs. They're typically run by our partner CIEE. They run a lot of our language programs, and you'd be going for the purpose of learning the language. So most of your classes would be in that language. You'd have to reach a certain level of the language before you'd go. That could be anything from you took it in high school, you tested out of it, you're a native speaker, but you know how to speak better than you know how to write. So therefore you want to hone in on those skills. So we offer language intensive programs and sometimes you can take, 3 language intensive programs and then like 2 business classes. That certainly does exist. We offer language intensive programs in South Korea, Japan, Spain, France, Belgium, I already said South Korea, right? There is a language intensive option in Italy, Germany, China. I think that's it off the top of my head. Jordan, if you're interested in Arabic. So if you are someone who wants to really perfect your language skills, you can make sure that you choose a program that offers that for you. And oftentimes, if they offer that, there is the option of doing a homestay.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Feel free to put it in the chat if you don't want to unmute yourself. That's totally fine.
So wait, for the fall 2021 Rome sports management one, would housing, so it's at the American University of Rome, so would you live with other American University students that like could possibly be Drexel students, and like is housing included in that program?
Housing is included in that program. That is organized by American University of Rome. And typically, I believe they often organize it that you're with at least one other Drexel student in a flat, and then you'd probably have 2 students who are Americans from elsewhere. That's typically how they organize it. We will actually be having, as long as things go as planned, a pretty big cohort of Drexel students going to American University of Rome in the fall. So there will be a lot of Drexel students if you want to kind of form your Drexel community, but there will be, it's a big international school. So they have students from all over who study abroad there. We have a standard AUR track that we run every single fall. And we send a handful of students on our standard AUR track. Then we have the sport management track that we will be sending at least 8 students. And then this year, because of COVID, they ended up overlapping. We also have a culinary and hospitality management track that's also going to AUR that will also have a minimum of 8 students. So there's going to be a big Drexel cohort that at the minimum will probably be about 20 students going to AUR for fall 21.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Don't be shy.
What would you say the average costs are for each program, and just compare overall what you think the costs are? Because that would probably be my biggest issue. But I definitely do want to study abroad. So
it's a hard question to answer just because there's so many differences, but I'll try to give you a picture of that. So our summer programs sometimes can be only a month long. And the shorter the program is, the less money it's going to cost and the less credits you're going to earn. So we have summer programs that are a month long. That will probably be the cheapest program that you could find because, well, you're there for less time, so it costs less money to be there. And then we have summer programs that are going to be double that, and that will probably double the cost because you're there for twice as long. Programs in Asia and Latin America tend to be less expensive than Europe and Australia. So I'm going to put tuition aside because everyone's tuition looks different depending on your aid, but the cost of going on some of our programs would be the cost of housing. And I'd say, like, generally speaking, in Europe, it'll probably be about $1,000 a month for housing, generally speaking. That's not all that different from what it costs to live in Philadelphia, generally speaking, per month. And in Asia, it will maybe be half of that, sometimes even less. Tati, do you want to weigh in a little bit on this?
Yeah, so I was studying abroad in Paris and London. So I kind of had to find my own place in Paris. And that was a little bit expensive. It was because it is Paris and I wanted to live in a safe neighborhood. So that was just the choice that I made. I paid a little bit more. But then I was really interested in studying abroad in Singapore, which offer a dorm option because it is an exchange program. And the cost for a dorm was about $400 a month, which would allow me to save money because I pay way more here in Philadelphia than I would do in Singapore. So it really depends on your situation and how you want to approach it. So money was a big issue for me. I wanted to make sure that it's balanced. So that's why I looked into programs that would offer a dorm, and then I looked on the websites like, okay, how much is it going to cost? So do that initial research will ease the stress a little bit at the end.
Yeah. And in terms of bang for your buck, the ICAs are great, but they are, a program fee for 7 to 10 days long. So if you're interested in like what are you going to get the most for the longest period of time and spending the least amount of money, the ICAs are going to be a cost for a shorter period of time, and the flight cost won't change. It doesn't really change the cost for how long you're there. The cost is based on when you leave and when you come back. So I think that some of the longer programs in Asia are probably the best bang for your buck because they end up being less expensive and the full length of a semester.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. I just am more, because I know that there are some programs, like I was saying before, with Romania, that I might want to do an independent study abroad program for.
Yeah.
Is that something that Drexel would help out with, or is that something that we would just have to do on our own?
If you want Drexel's help, we will absolutely help. Sometimes students, I mean, I'm the one who advises for all the independent study abroad students, and sometimes they already come to me knowing what they want to do, and they're like, can you just open my application? And sometimes they're like, I want to go to this country, but I don't know how to make it happen or what to do, where to start. And then I will walk you through that whole process. So yes, we will help you. It's the short answer.
Thanks again.
Yep. Anyone else? All right, well, I'm gonna stop recording. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'm gonna hang around. So if anyone wants to ask a question as people are filtering out, I'm here. And I thank you guys so much for coming.